In this video, I want to show you how to create and assign your own assignments created in the question bank. So when you are in AP Classroom, if you click on Question Bank up at the top, it will bring you to the main screen of the question bank, and you'll notice you have Create, Assign, Progress, and Results at the top. So when you are in the question bank, you can create your own assignment or practice assignments or even assessments using this question bank. So when you are under the Create tab, you'll notice that there are over 1,000 questions. I highly recommend that when you are creating an assignment or an assessment that you use these filters in order to make your life a little bit easier when you are looking for specific questions. So if you click on unit and topic, this is the filter that I use most often. You can either filter by an entire unit or even by an individual topic. So for example, we just reviewed Unit 3 and the most missed topics for my students was 3.5 and 3.13. So what I did is I just selected those two topics, and if I click off to the side, you'll notice now it says multiple selected, and there are 35 questions that match my filter. And so I can add all of these questions to a quiz. So if I click add these questions to the quiz, that now would let me add all of these questions to a new quiz. Or if I want to look for specific types of questions, so let's say I want only the free response questions, I can click on question type and I will choose both SAQ and LEQ. So I'll choose both short and long free response questions. So then I'll click off to the side again. So notice now I have multiple filters selected and there are 5 questions that match my filters. I have a couple different options as I'm looking at these questions. Again, if I want to add all of them to the quiz, I can just click on add these questions to the quiz. And so when I click, it now says 5 questions added to the quiz. So it added all of them. Now, let's say that I didn't want to do that. I can undo it. And I could add them individually. So whether you click on the title or you click on preview, that will open the question into a bigger screen and it will actually let you look at the entire question. You'll notice if you see the orange along the side, that means I've added it to some sort of assignment already. So that just means that my students may have seen it already. You can also click on the FRQ. This tells me this is a short question. And if I keep clicking through, so these are short questions, short. So these are all short questions, so there are no long essay questions here. Then I could add them individually, so I could just add them all individually this way. Because there are no blue shields here, that means I have no secure questions, which means my students do not need the lockdown browser to use this. If you want to preview, again, I can just click on preview, and it might take a second to load, but then it will pull up the entire question, and I can choose, I can click on question scoring and details over on the side, and when I do that, if I scroll down, it actually shows me the scoring guidelines. So it would show each part how students would get the point. But then it also shows me the big ideas, the practice and the skills, and then the specific topics that it covers. Then you can click the X to close out. And over here, I could just say Unit 3 practice, and I'm going to save it. It has been saving on its own, but sometimes there's a glitch and it might not save. So then if you click preview, that will preview the entire thing, or you can then click on assign. And so if I want to assign this to my students, I'll just click on assign. I want to choose the specific class. I can unlock it, let students see their results. You can set a date and time, so I can choose when the assessment starts and when it's due, and I can also set a time limit, so I can choose how many minutes I want to allow students to work on that. And then you can scramble the questions and you can assign it as a print test. So if you are in school and you want to give this as a hard copy of a test instead of digitally, you can actually check that, and then that will, instead of unlocking it, that's going to kind of override that. But if you turn that back off, then you would just have to go back in and restart everything. So then I can click assign, and it will assign directly to my students. And then once you have assigned something to your students, up here at the top, you have the assign. So this shows all of the assessments or assignments that I've created. It also shows the practice exams that have been released. So this shield means that it's secure, which means your students need the lockdown browser if you assign that. But if I scroll down a little bit, notice there was a quiz that was assigned, Chapter 16 quiz, but then other of my quizzes required the lockdown browser. So just make sure if you do see this blue shield that your students have the lockdown browser. Once you've created assignments or assessments, that's where you'll find those and where you can click on Assign. You can also then click on Progress, so you'll notice that I've only been focusing on the progress checks, so I have no unfinished assignments here. But if you click on Progress, this is where your students will see this optional student practice with this bullseye. So if students actually click on that, you can actually go in and you can click on each of the questions and you can look at it yourself. You can also choose a due date. So if you click on one of the free response questions that has been released, you can actually click on the due date, the time limit, or if you don't want it to be there for your students, you can lock it back up by just clicking on Lock Assessment. Click on Yes. And then if you want to go back to the practice, just click on the Progress tab again. Here I have assigned some to my students already. When they start, you can click on View Progress and that will let them work through that way. But they actually, all of your students, will have the scoring guidelines for all of these questions already. That's why it's this optional practice, because they'll be able to score themselves. Then if you click on Results, this is where you would be able to see all of your assignments. Just like with the progress checks, you'll see student performance, you'll see all of that there. And then you can also see the optional student practice. This would be the results. So how did the students do? What was most commonly missed? If you want to create an assignment, you'll go to the Create tab and notice now that I've gone back, it's creating a new quiz. If you want to edit any of your created assignments, you'll go to the Assign tab. When you are under the Assign tab, you will look for the assignment that you have created, and if you want to edit, you have to click on the green Edit button. And so then you can continue to just create more and more assignments or practice and assign to your students. You can look at results, but just remember that the free response questions, only the optional student practice, do the students have the scoring guidelines. If it's not part of this optional student practice, then the students are not able to score themselves and you would have to score the free response questions.